On a bright, unforgiving afternoon, in front of a sprawling mansion with marble steps so white they hurt the eyes and towering windows that gleamed under the sunlight, a fragile elderly woman sat trembling on the stone pathway. Her voice, thin and cracked like dry leaves, begged for mercy as tears cut clean lines through the wrinkles on her face. Strands of her silver hair, once a source of quiet pride, lay scattered and helpless on the ground around her. Kneeling beside her was a younger woman, the picture of elegance in a designer dress, but her laughter was a cruel, sharp sound. In her hand, a pair of scissors glinted, continuing their brutal work, slicing through the old woman's thinning locks with a cold, rhythmic snip. What no one passing by could have possibly known was that inside that very mansion lived a man of immense wealth and influence, a man respected in boardrooms and admired at galas. Yet in that precise moment, as the sun beat down on the scene of quiet horror, his heart was about to shatter in a way no amount of money could ever hope to fix. The old woman was Margaret Wood, the mother of the wealthy and powerful Leonard Wood. While Leonard had constructed an empire in the world of finance, his face a regular feature in glossy magazines next to headlines of his success, Margaret had lived a life of simple humility. To her old neighbors before Leonard's fortune had moved her to this vast, lonely estate, she was the woman who always had a pot of tea ready for a visitor and a warm embrace for anyone carrying a heavy heart. Her greatest achievement, in her own eyes, was not his wealth, but the good man she believed she had raised alone, after losing her husband when Leonard was just a boy. But the years had not been entirely gentle. Her strength had slowly seeped away. Her steps were now hesitant. Her hands shook as she gripped her cane, and her once neatly styled hair had grown frail. Margaret was vulnerable. Although her son's fortune could have wrapped her in a cocoon of complete safety, Leonard was often away on business. He trusted his girlfriend, Vivian Hale, to treat his mother with the respect and care she deserved. Vivian, after all, had been introduced to his world as a sophisticated woman of impeccable charm and grace, the kind of partner Leonard thought could stand proudly by his side as he conquered the world. That afternoon, however, behind the tall, closed gates of the estate, Vivian revealed a face that Leonard had never seen. The charm was a mask, and underneath it was a chilling cruelty. Instead of offering a gentle hand to help Margaret to her feet, she mocked her fragility. "You look ridiculous with this hair," Vivian had sneered, her voice dripping with a venomous sweetness. She had guided Margaret outside, under the pretense of getting some sun, only to force her into a hard garden chair. The old woman pleaded softly, her shaking hands clutched in her lap, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. But Vivian only laughed, a sound devoid of any warmth, as she gripped the scissors tighter. "Just a little trim to make you look presentable," she had lied. Snip after snip, the scissors flashed in the sun. Margaret's soft sobs turned into desperate pleas, but they were met only with more derisive laughter. The mansion's vast front lawn seemed to stretch on for miles, a silent green witness to the heart-wrenching sounds of Margaret's cries. At that very moment, Leonard's car was pulling silently up the long driveway. He was returning from a business meeting far earlier than expected. A deal had closed with surprising speed. His polished leather shoes clicked on the pathway as he walked towards the entrance, a black briefcase in one hand. His mind was a whirlwind of contracts, market projections, and numbers with long trails of zeros. But then a sound cut through his thoughts, a sound that didn't belong in his orderly world. It was his mother's voice, fragile, breaking, begging. It was a sound he hadn't heard since he was a small boy, when she would cry softly in her room in the dead of night, thinking he was asleep, mourning the loss of his father. The memory hit him like a physical blow. His heart seized in his chest. He froze for a split second, the world of finance vanishing from his mind, replaced by a primal, urgent fear. He quickened his pace, rounding the corner of the grand entrance, his eyes searching desperately for the source of that terrible sound. What he saw left him breathless, sucking the very air from his lungs. There on the cold ground was his mother, his rock, his lifelong protector, the woman who had gone without so he could have everything, with tears streaming down her face. Her beautiful silver hair was butchered, scattered around her like fallen snow. And towering over her, scissors still in hand, was Vivian, laughing with a look of cruel, undeniable delight on her perfect face. For a moment, Leonard felt the world tilt on its axis. The manicured lawns, the gleaming windows, the solid stone beneath his feet. It all seemed to sway. His chest tightened until he could barely breathe, his legs threatening to buckle. But then, a white-hot anger, pure and absolute, surged through his veins, giving him a terrifying strength. He dropped his briefcase. The sharp crack of it, hitting the stone pathway, echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Vivian's laughter died in her throat as she spun around, her eyes widening in shock and panic when she saw him. The cruel mask fell away, replaced by a flicker of fear. But the damage was done. The truth was laid bare in the sunlight. Margaret lifted her tear-filled eyes to her son, trembling, whispering his name as if he were a long-awaited rescuer in a nightmare. Leonard rushed to her side, falling to his knees and gathering her shaking hands into his. His own voice was thick with a mixture of fury and profound sorrow. "Mother," he choked out, the word feeling inadequate for the storm of emotion inside him. In that instant, he understood with blinding clarity that all the wealth he had amassed, all the buildings with his name on them, all the respect he commanded in the world meant absolutely nothing if he couldn't protect the one woman who had sacrificed everything for him. Vivian began to stammer, her voice suddenly coated in false concern and flimsy excuses. "Leonard, darling, it's not what it looks like. I was just helping her. Her hair was such a mess." But Leonard's gaze, cold and hard as steel, silenced her. He looked at her and saw right through the elegant facade, through the polished image she had so carefully crafted. What stood before him was not a partner, but a monster who had preyed on the helpless and betrayed the most sacred trust he had ever given. Without saying another word to her, he gently took the scissors from her limp hand and tossed them far into the bushes. He then turned his full attention back to his mother, wrapping his strong arms around her frail, trembling body, pulling her close and whispering promises into what remained of her hair. He promised her that she would never, ever be left alone or unprotected again. The days that followed were a quiet storm of sorrow and healing. Margaret, though deeply shaken by the humiliation and cruelty, found immense comfort in her son's unwavering presence. Leonard cleared his schedule completely. Meetings were cancelled, international trips were postponed indefinitely. The powerful businessman, a titan of industry, was no longer seen in high-rise conference rooms or exclusive hotels. Instead, he was in the quiet comfort of his home, learning to cook the simple meals his mother had once made for him. He was seen sitting with her in the garden for hours, speaking little but offering the steady comfort of his company. He would gently brush what remained of her silver hair, his touch infinitely tender, and tell her again and again that she was, and always had been, his greatest treasure. The vast mansion, which had once echoed with Vivian's artificial laughter and felt cold despite its luxurious furnishings, slowly transformed. It became a sanctuary, filled not with the sound of hollow pleasantries, but with the warmth of genuine love and healing. Vivian vanished from Leonard's life as completely as a phantom at dawn. Her betrayal was a deep wound, but it was also a brutal, necessary lesson. Wealth, he now saw, could attract people like moths to a flame, but it also had a way of revealing their true character when held up against the simple light of human decency. As weeks turned into a month, Margaret's gentle smile began to return. Neighbors would see her sitting by the garden again, her now short silver hair tied neatly with a ribbon Leonard had bought for her. Her eyes, which had been clouded with fear, were brighter than they had been in years. She would often hold Leonard's hand as they took slow walks around the property, whispering how proud she was of him. Not for his fortune. Not for his name in the papers, but for the man of heart he had finally chosen to be. Leonard, too, found a new and profound perspective. He realized that the greatest empire he could ever build was not one of mortgages and stocks, but one of love, respect, and unwavering protection for the people who truly mattered. His mother's tears on that terrible afternoon had become a turning point, a painful baptism that had washed away his naivety and reshaped his destiny, grounding him in a wealth far more valuable than any currency.